And the news today is that there's no news today. It really is a quiet period at the moment. I suppose in a way it's good, but you can be too busy. Now I've got lots of things to be done, but not now. I've decided, with a few suggestions from others, that the Cattleyas or Cattleya types are coming out of the clay pots. Because of my much lower temperatures, I'm not prepared to have their roots extra cooled by evaporative cooling from the clay pots. So I will have to find a substitute. And I think a reasonably viable substitute is these plastic type baskets like this. Plenty of air. In some cases, like this, holes small enough to stop the bark falling out, and in some cases not small enough to stop the bark falling out, although it seems to manage it. And those are reasonably easy to get hold of and dirt cheap, so that that would be something to do. And that's a fair amount of work. There are, well, I can count them from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think there's 6. Oh, and there's some more down on the bottom shelf. Probably about 10 to do. And if you think about it, getting Cattleyas out of clay pots when they've been in there a while and the roots are attached is a bit of a big deal. So the timing's got to be right for every single one, and therefore they won't all happen at the same time. They'll vary. There's not much going on with the Cattleyas at the moment. The Laelia anceps spikes are pushing on. I think I would have to agree, I read somewhere, that if your Laelia anceps is in good light, in suitable light, you don't get the ridiculously long spikes. Whereas if it's not in enough light, you do. So that looks like it might be true, because it's certainly had good light this year and the spikes aren't very long. I mean, they're not forming their buds yet, but they will be soon. And then there's not much else going on with the Cattleyas at the moment. There's several have got new growths pushing on. Some have got some roots growing, so we may do some work on them soon. I've got work to do on 2 of my 3 big Miltonias. They've got to be split up and repotted with all the new growth centralised, so that they can spend another couple of years in the pot once they're done. I've also got a list of plants that are they have quite high content of that cocoa husk, and I want to repot them to get rid of it, because that was done a while ago, and I'm not sure how long that stuff lasts, especially when it's staying wet longer than I would like in this current environment. Again, it's a change in the environment that's requiring a lot of different work and additional work, possibly as one-offs. Getting rid of the cocoa husk and well, I was going to say, and getting rid of those with moss, but there's very few with moss in the pot. There are a few with some broken up Welsh moss in the pot, but because that's so coarse, that wouldn't be holding moisture too long. It wouldn't be making a tremendous amount of difference, but the cocoa husk does. So I want that gone. We probably won't ever use that again now, as long as I stay here anyway. So, there's some things going on, and there's stuff that's just coming round to its natural repot time because of the length of time it's been in its pots. So I think this spring, late winter into spring, is going to be very busy on the repotting front. But you have to bear in mind by then there's about 30 plants won't be here anymore. Now, unfortunately, sorry Carol, some of those plants won't be going to Carol anymore because they're not going to make it. They're not going to live long enough to post off to somebody else. The cold has got a couple, and some were just in a weakened state, and they're just not worth bothering with. Although I know Carol, she'll say send a lot and let me worry about whether I bother or not, which is fair enough. They're going bare rooted, so quite honestly, quite a lot of the smaller plants, they're going to take up virtually no space in the box. So the number's not not that important. And I don't think there's many large plants going to Carol. There's a few medium, but anyway, there's that to do, and that will be sometime in January that will happen. It'll have to be a period when all this postal strike nonsense has hopefully been sorted out, and hopefully they've all been treated fairly. And yeah, it's quite a lot of sympathy for quite a lot of the people that are on strike. Their reasons for going on strike. Top of my list is the people involved with the NHS. You know, we all stood out in the road and clapped them for their performance in the pandemic, and you know, now we give them a pittance of a pay rise. It's not fair, and they should be at the top of the list. To me, they are the highest priority. Right, some other bits and pieces. I mean, it's the 3 cymbidiums, they've all got to be repotted. One because it's climbing out the pot, that one. That's a real pig trying to water that. And that's still pushing up either growths or spikes. So that needs to go in a much bigger pot. And the other 2 need repotting. I mean, this one, the one that's at the bottom of that spike, that hasn't been repotted for ages. So that's got to be done because it needs to be done. And this one's got to be done because I haven't done it yet and I don't know what it's going to be in good stuff. But it would have been, this came from Mathers, it would have been in a regime that got it repotted on a regular basis with good quality media. So I'd be replacing that on the grounds it's probably been in the pot long enough. So get that done. And other stuff, as I said, it's just coming round. There's one for Carol that's not going to go. The cold's got at that one. Badly. Shame, because that one was doing okay. But whereas I say the cold's got at it, if we turn it round here, that one growth might hang in there. That's the newest cane. Now it's going to lose those 2 leaves and it might lose that one, but these top ones might hang in there. But I doubt it. I suspect, you know, the leaves are falling off as I touch it. It's just collapsing. So probably not. But that's the worst one. That is a Phalaenopsis type dendrobium, and that's the worst one. So that one I can pretty safely say is not going to make it. But there are others that, although they don't look brilliant, the cold hasn't taken them down. It's done a bit of damage that is recoverable, if you know what I mean. But that's the bad one. That's the one I noticed the other day. And I was going to water everything today. And I had to look and I thought, well, we're not going to do much with 2 containers of water, are we? So, so I've had to put the RO unit on. Yeah, so that it can wait till tomorrow. I mean, we are getting better temperatures now. With this door open, I mean, I'm up to 18 in here today, which is far more how I would like it every day. As I said, going down to sort of 13 at night and coming up to 17, 18 during the day, I'm happy with that. But as I said, the daytime temperature in here is totally dependent on what it's like outside the glass and whether I'm prepared to open this door behind me or not and let the heat out of the lounge. Which, when it's really, really cold and the house won't stay warm, I'm reluctant to do. But that was a particularly bad cold snap. That's life, that's how it goes. I mean, I can remember when I was a lot younger, all winters were like that. And even down here on the south coast, we had snow. We had snow almost every year. And all the flood water on the, you know, on the fields and everything froze solid. You know, winters were a lot harder. You go back sort of 50 years, they were harder then. But there's no climate change. It's not getting warmer. Of course it's not. Cobblers. Anyway, this little display up here is still looking good. There's some good blooms up here. I mean, these are absolutely stunning. You know, it's good to see them. And they're all going to miss any chance of going to an Orchid Society or a show, because they'll be long over by the time the next one of those comes round. The next show is February, end of February. And then the Orchid Society I belong to is a week or 2 later, early March. That'll be the next one that I can film at. And I'll put a pop-up, but you could be guessing before the pop-up comes up how long have those Vanda blooms been out, and they're showing no signs of going over yet. You know, these are the first blooms to have opened, the ones at the bottom of the spike. They're showing no signs of going. So how long do you think that spike's been opened so far? And it's still got, I would say, a couple of weeks minimum to go. Because it took probably 2 weeks or more to open fully to the top bloom. So it will take the same amount of time to drop back. So, yeah. And there's your pop-up. Were you right? Were you anywhere near it? Were you close? But they last really well. I remember once it bloomed in the summer and they lasted about half as long. They last much, much better in the winter. Well, on that particular Vanda anyway. But there we go. And there really isn't much else going on. So looking round plants that should have suffered in the cold that haven't. This one, that's showing no real signs of cold damage. And this one here, you know, it's a Latoria type. No signs of cold damage on that one. So some of them are okay. And like I said, those that put up with it get to stay. Apart from the ones I've already agreed can go, if you know what I mean. But, yeah, so as I say, not much going on as far as filming is concerned, because there's not much changing. There's some spikes up here on this Oncidium type. There's two spikes on that plant, but those buds are quite a long way off opening, and quite honestly they're not that spectacular when they do open. Anyway, yeah, I'll leave it at that for today. I was just sort of pointing the camera around, just having a general look round. But I'm quite looking forward to gaining some space, you know, with some pots gone. There's areas that probably won't change much. I mean, if you take like down here, everything on here is staying except for the two on the far side, because they're the same. So one of those will be gone. Up here, 2 of those will be gone, 3 of those will be gone. So that shelf will become clearer, but it's not a shelf I can do a lot with, because it's a short shelf. I can only put shorter plants on there. There's a couple from up here that will be gone. Not many, but a couple. Don't think there's anything on that shelf. And over here, there's not much of this. Most of this is staying as well. There's some of the stuff down here will be gone. Some of these smaller Oncidium types, and some of the Masdevallias are going to go. And I think one of the Restrepias is going to go. The Vasa Vixella at the end there, that's going to go. So I will gain some space, but the space I could do with more of is top shelf space for taller plants, and I'm not actually going to gain much of that. But anyway, we shall see. There are some things that went on top shelves last year that shouldn't have done, and they only went up there because of the tall spikes. So although they'll need, well, 2 of those plants, which are the 2 big Miltonias, are actually going to get repotted and restricted. They won't be allowed to bloom next year, so they can go in a much shadier place and get green up a bit, because they got a bit pale in the bright light last year. So yeah, and yeah, as I say, it's just a quiet time of year, and there's not a lot going on. I mean, if you think all the resting type dendrobiums and that type of thing, they're not going to do anything for, well, at least another 4 weeks, I'd have thought. Nobelies during January into February will start forming nubbins. You know, they will come out of their sort of resting period, and we'll be looking forward to the blooms on those. So lots of things to come, but not lots of things going on. And that's just how it is. I'm sure other people are in the same boat. So anyway, enough waffling on. And I should be sorry to see these go. But once these last 2 blooms have gone on this one, that gets a repot. And the Miltoniopsis over here, I'm thinking of actually sacrificing those last 2 buds, because that needs a repot as well. So yeah, the old repotting is going to going to start going in the not too distant future. Things like a Miltoniopsis that's in a suspect media, that doesn't have to wait to be repotted. Waiting will probably do more harm than repotting it at not quite the right time. As you know, if you lose your root system on those, it's a pig trying to get it back again. It's better to lose some of it because of the repot rather than lose nearly all of it because of the media it's in and it got left. So, you know, sort of catch-22 thing going on there. This I would class, although this is an Nelliela, I would put it in a very similar boat to a Miltoniopsis as far as care and, you know, temperatures, media, watering, light, virtually everything's the same as a Miltoniopsis. That's probably why people have trouble with the flipping things. I've known so many people you know, they're on their 5th or 6th Nelliela and they still haven't got one to last more than a year. They just, you know, you buy them and they look good and they've got lovely blooms on and everything, and they just seem to go downhill. And it's not just me, there's loads of people have the same trouble with the flipping things. And I think it's probably because they have got a percentage of Miltoniopsis in them. Well, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Right, okay, workload high next year compared with previous years, and a lot of repotting to make me feel better heading towards next winter, because that's what it's all about. Now I know what winter does and my lack of daytime temperatures, now I can plan for it and hopefully do better next winter compared with how I've done this winter. I mean, I haven't done bad this winter, but it has caught me a bit on the hop. You know, I did not expect daytime temperatures not much better than the nighttime temperatures on the thermostat, you know, on the heater. So I'll have to work with that. So when I'm out looking at shows and all these wonderful orchids for sale, I stop and think, is that one going to be okay in my place in the winter? And if the answer's no, then it can stay where it is. And we'll head more for the ones down the bottom end of intermediate and into the cooler end, rather than the higher end of intermediate into the warmer end. So it's just a change of outlook, and therefore a change of you know, types of orchids that I would do better with. So we'll see how that goes, and that will, you know, come and go as the year progresses, as orchids become available and things like that, and we'll get some new stuff in. I might even venture out into some new genera. But you have to bear in mind, as you get into the cooler growers, there's an awful lot of them start getting smaller and smaller blooms. And you know what I'm like, I like the big blooms. I like to see that big splash of colour. I don't like having to get a magnifying glass out to see what the blooms look like. I mean, this here, these are beautiful little blooms, but is it really worth it? You know, I mean, it is a species, fair enough, and it's sort of justified, but, you know, I mean, when you get a plant, what is this? It's Chirophorum, isn't it? Yeah. And when you get a good size one of these with lots and lots of spikes, good size spikes, this is a weak spike, good size spikes all open at the same time, it's quite a spectacle. The individual blooms aren't. You know, whereas you get something like this, the individual blooms are good. Even if your spike's not very good and you've only got a couple, they're still good. They're still good to look at. Same with the Cymbidiums, big, bright, you know, blousy type stuff. And even these, some of these, you wouldn't class these as large blooms, but there's still a good splash of colour there that can be seen from a distance. So, anyway, I'll go and get this one loaded before the light fades again. I've been out and about today, ventured out of the door, ran out of cat litter for the litter tray. We can't have that, so I had to venture out today. But, yeah, I don't venture out that much. I do most of my shopping and stuff online. Virtually all the stuff I need for Christmas is already got, a lot of which is in the freezer. And I've got a delivery coming on Friday, which is the fresh stuff, you know, the fresh vegetables, the things that are better fresh rather than frozen. But But the supermarket I use, the good old Tesco's, I went through my shop this morning because I wanted to add a few things in. There were quite a few things out of stock, so I may not get everything I've ordered on Friday. I was warned. The guy that came round and delivered the last one, he said, "Have you got one of the Christmas slots?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, don't have high hopes that you'll get everything because there's serious rumours that we're in short supply of quite a lot of Christmassy type things." So, he said, bear that in mind. Yeah. Well, I look at it like this. What food we've got, we will be grateful for, and it will be wonderful. And if there's a few things that don't turn up, well, they probably won't even be missed. I'll know they're not there, but my guests won't, I doubt. There's one of my favourite little birds on the bird feeder then, but a bit too quick for me. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. And as I said, the workload next year is going to be quite high with a lot of repotting, some of which is not just taking a plant out of a pot and putting it in new media. Getting the cattleyas out of the holy clay pots is quite a big deal. Repotting giant cymbidiums is quite a big deal. When I repotted the cymbidium, the one I look after for Hannah last time, that's one of my highest hit videos. Probably because the title said repotting a cymbidium. I am going to have to tidy my titles up. The titles need to be more specific. That's all it comes down to. There's two schools of thought. If you make the orchid title, the video title, very specific, then you may exclude people that are not quite as interested as they might have been if it was left a bit vague. They might have watched some of it and then thought, actually I'm not so fussed. Whereas if you make a very specific title, they may read the title and think, I've got no interest in that, and not watch any of it. But from the other side, if you make a specific title, then people who are searching in to find information on that sort of thing will find it and come to it. And that may be a nice new subscriber that stays with the channel. Swings and roundabouts, And that's what running a channel's all about. You stick your neck out and you see what happens, and if it doesn't work, then you try something else. That's the name of the game. See you next time. Bye for now.